Greetings, cinephiles. Are you looking for a movie analysis podcast that stands above the rest? Then look no further than Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters.
We analyze good movies, we analyze bad movies, and yes, we also analyze the in-betweens of the world of cinema.
So if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And yes, my friends, we are 420 friendly. So when you listen to us, smoke it if you've got it. And now, here's a new episode of Collateral Gaming. The show starts right now.
Take that!
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Bo Maddox.
And this is Collateral Gaming.
Eureka!
Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you have, be it bongs, blunts, or joints, smoke it if you've got it. And welcome to another game launch review. I guess probably the very last piece of post-season content before our season premiere as well, as we are finally getting into the Ace Attorney Investigations collection. Bo, I've actually been super excited to review these couple games, super excited to actually play through both of these, as these were the only Ace Attorney games that I had actually yet to complete.
Mr. Edgeworth. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, man, these games right here, I mean, I don't know what I was really expecting out of them initially, but I mean, I saw the isometric kind of almost JRPG like quality of the investigations and everything, and that piqued my interest. And honestly, these games really delivered on all of that. I mean, it pretty much delivered on everything that I expected.
Yeah. Well, I had played the iOS port of Ace Attorney Investigations 1 back when I was first playing through the Ace Attorney series, and it's actually the one game that had been released in the West at that point that I had not fully completed, although I had made it through 4 out of the 5 cases, and partway through the final case, I just, for some reason, never got around to finishing it. Maybe that first Investigations title just really didn't grab me as much as the other entries did. But now that I've had a chance to replay it and actually complete it, I have full thoughts on it. And as well, I was able to actually play for the first time Ace Attorney Investigations 2, as this game has never seen a release outside of Japan up until now. Most fans had given up hope because, I mean, it had been something like 13 years. And these two games are spin-offs of the main franchise and aren't spoken as much in circles as some of the other games are. So it actually was kind of a surprise a few months ago when that Nintendo Direct dropped and announced that this would be coming to Switch and other consoles.
Man, I remember all of the fan reactions that went out whenever that was announced. It's like people were just freaking out. I think that there was a GameStop where everybody was watching the Nintendo Direct, and the minute that I think it was the Pursuit theme or whatever, once they heard that, I mean, people just flipped. They were like, it was like that one Game of Thrones announcement almost, you know? You know the one.
Oh man, I was watching the Nintendo Direct live, so I was right there, you know, reacting to it in real time. As soon as I saw that we were getting something Ace Attorney and they showed Miles, I was like, oh my god, they're actually doing the Investigations games, and that's great. So a lot of people have played the fan translation. So there was a way to play Ace Attorney Investigations 2, but considering I had never completed the first game, I just never got around to playing that fan translation. Boy, was I missing out, because
yeah.
Whereas Ace Attorney Investigations didn't immediately pique my interest, Ace Attorney Investigations 2 is honestly like among the peaks of the franchise. For me, it is right up there with the original Phoenix Wright trilogy and the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Ace Attorney Investigations 2 has some of the best writing this series has to offer, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But Bo, what was your how did you enjoy the departure in gameplay in these two titles?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that unlike a lot of people, I did really like the first Ace Attorney Investigations. I really liked the story. I thought it was very engaging. I really liked the I really liked the approach to the overarching story throughout and everything. But as far as the gameplay and everything, this is almost like the most condensed version of the traditional Phoenix Wright gameplay loop, but also a bit of an aberration from it, you know, because we do have some of the really familiar mechanics from Phoenix Wright, like, for instance, the collecting of evidence and examining it and everything, and also, you know, the testimonies, which in this case are just arguments and rebuttals, you know, and since you're not in court or anything.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I said, I really like the isometric overview of the actual investigation scenes, you know, and actually being able to explore the backgrounds and everything a little more in depth than we were able to in previous Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games.
Yeah, so the Ace Attorney Investigation games are somewhat different in that they're not really visual novel adventures like the other games are, but just kind of straight up adventure games, and actually being able to get on the action and investigate these crimes sometimes hours after they've occurred, and be able to actually move Miles Edgeworth around and check things out and talk to people. It really is a refreshing change of pace while still containing a lot of those core elements. Like you said, I mean, you're still collecting pieces of evidence, and you're still doing what are essentially testimonies. I mean, gameplay-wise, they're identical. They're just maybe a little bit more fast-paced and interspersed in a way that you don't have these quite so distinct stages that the main games do, where it's, you know, investigation and trial. And you know, being able to actually see Miles Edgeworth in third person rather than that first person view that we saw in Investigations is nice too, because, you know, you're always able to see his reactions to things. So, this was actually a pleasant surprise for me, you know, when I initially started playing the first game and on replay here. I never thought the first Investigations game was bad. I just, for some reason, it didn't quite hook me initially, but I actually had a much more fun time with it in this one.
Yeah.
This time around.
It's that kind of seems like the consensus amongst the fandom regarding the first game. And I mean, and then as you know, I'm kind of the type that likes to kind of go against the fandom a little bit in certain things. I mean,
sure.
Like for instance, you know, Turnabout Big Top is one of my favorite cases, and that's mainly because Mo of the Clown. So, yeah. But I mean, I thought that it's really what you would give somebody who maybe doesn't really like the traditional Phoenix Wright games and the whole gameplay loop there and the whole visual novel presentation and everything. This is for those people who don't really get into that part of Phoenix Wright, but you know, it's also a really condensed version of the regular gameplay loop, you know, and it's very much for people who may not like the mainline Phoenix Wright games even.
Yeah,
you know, because it gives you enough to do and it gives enough of a different perspective in everything that, you know, people who may not get into the original gameplay loop, I mean, they will actually kind of, you know, might actually get into this because it's a little more hands-on in many ways.
Exactly. I think this is a great way to sort of sample the series. If maybe, you know, the visual novel type, this doesn't seem like the kind of game that you might want to play, or you're not interested in, or you've tried it and you're just not quite getting into it. This is a much easier transition, and you could play these games theoretically by themselves. They're standalone stories like every Ace Attorney game is. That being said, there are a lot of references to past titles, and I feel like the game is enjoyed best with all of those. But certainly by no means could you not start here. In my opinion, I think this is the ideal couple of games to play right after the Phoenix Wright trilogy. So if you start with the original 3 games, and I didn't even really do this. I mean, I kind of tried Ace Attorney Investigations 1. It didn't really catch me, so I just started playing Apollo Justice instead, and then I kept playing through that, and but it is kind of a nice change of pace, a little bit of break from that style of gameplay that we see in all the games, and it gives you an opportunity to check in on some characters, because there'll be many familiar faces that they pepper throughout these 2 games, as well as some of the best original characters that this series has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, if you really get into the fandom, I mean, and you don't know anything about these games, I mean, you're going to see Kay Faraday all over the place. You're going to see, like Verity Gravel and Eustace Winter and
Shilong
whatnot,
Lang.
and Eddie Fender. Yeah, you're going to see them. You're going to see... you're going to see Lang. I mean, yeah, I was even somewhat aware of these games before I really, got really too deep into the Phoenix Wright fandom.
Same.
I was aware of their characters and whatnot, and a lot of the music. But now, actually having played the game and everything, and put a face to these characters, it's like, yeah, these are really some of the better characters that they've brought out in these games.
Oh yeah, I mean, Kay Faraday right off the bat is kind of a standout. She's got to be one of my favorite characters in the franchise now. Just kind of as your teenage assistant character, and it's like Miles' version of Maya essentially. But she is completely her own character. I mean, she is the self-proclaimed second Yatagarasu. A great thief who steals only the truth.
Exactly.
Exposing like our dear God, Neil Breen, the government and corporate secrets. Right, Bo?
Corporate and government secrets, yep. And but I mean, this time around, there's no broken laptops to be seen. We just have Little Thief.
Just Little Thief, yeah. That was a cool little gameplay section that pops up in a few cases throughout these, is like the whole like recreation of crime scenes or other points of interest using the Little Thief hologram. That was actually really cool, kind of examining the environment during that mode. And they play with it a little bit more in Investigations 2, where you can even swap between 2 different time periods.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like finding, the little contradictions as you're investigating the scene with what we know of the case. And that's just one of many new gameplay additions that they've added to these games.
Yeah, that's something that I really noted playing through, especially the first game, but also I played through the first case in the second game, as well as, and I did start the second case earlier today, so I did meet up with Eddie and Eustace and Verity.
Nice.
So, I mean, I've already met them.
Yeah, there are a lot of really fun characters, and some of those don't pop up until the second game. I mean, Eddie Fender is just like, he's just such a lovable character. A lot of these new additions are. You kind of just think of him as that kind of absent-minded uncle. He's always trying to hug everybody.
Yeah, he's just like, come on in here. Come on, we're all chill. We're all relaxed here. I don't know. That's probably the one character in Phoenix Wright or Ace Attorney in these entire games is probably closest to my personality.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I can see it. He's very laid back. I love Uncle Eddie. Previously known as Raymond Shields in the fan translation. I guess that's something we can talk about too, is that...
Yeah, I like the new names, honestly. I mean, I never played the fan translation, so I have no real connection to it. And so, I mean, these new names, they feel very natural to the overall vibe that Ace Attorney games tend to have. You know, especially with the real punny names.
Arguably better names in most cases, better puns that they've spun out of some of these characters. Like, you have a character...
Yeah, but did you know that Dead Man is dead?
Yes.
Yes, you know that, right?
Did you know that
Dead Man...
Dead Man is a clever, subtle, hidden reference to the fact that he is dead in a man?
He is dead, and he is a man. Yes, he is very much a dead man.
I mean, we can't talk about Ace Attorney Investigations without talking about Dead Man.
Of course. No, we can't. A man who is dead.
Yeah, hold on. There's a copy pasta here. I found this on Reddit somewhere, and I've had it saved here. You probably didn't know this, but Dead Man's name is a subtle reference to the fact that he isn't actually alive. If you carefully deconstruct his name, you can find that his first name Dade shares a cryptic likeness to the word dead. This is a genius characterization of Dead Man on behalf of the writers, but their brilliancy doesn't stop there, as his last name Man actually shares some likeness to the word man. I know this sounds wild, but hear me out. It took me years before the revelation came to me that man shares a feature with man, even though the two words sound not even remotely alike. See, if you add an N to the word man, you get man. This hidden lore then in turn connects to the fact that Dead Man is actually of the male gender besides being a dead person. I know I'm being very interpretive here, but it's my self-realized headcanon that Dead Man is a wordplay on dead man. Never before have I seen a character with so many different sides.
Wow. Never change, Reddit. Never change. Never fucking change.
So, yeah, you can't talk about Ace Attorney Investigations without talking about Dead Man. Truly.
You just can't. No, not at all.
So, yeah, the puns are very good, as per usual, or very bad, which makes them very good. And like you, I had no attachment to the previous names. I mean, obviously, I'd heard them come up a lot in discussions, but I think for the most part, Capcom's new names are actually better than the fan translation ones. Obviously, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, Eustace Winter. People were very attached to the Sebastian de Best name. I'm just going to go out and say it. He is exactly a Eustace. The Eustace fits him very, very well.
Yes. Yes, if there's anyone who is a Eustace, who fits the archetype of a Eustace, yeah, that would be him. It's either him or Eustace from Courage the Cowardly Dog. So, yeah.
Eustace is actually perfect for him. And you also get the clever pun, Useless Winter.
Exactly.
Oh man, when Francisco whips the fuck out of him, I've never felt more alive. It was like I was like Arthur Fleck in Joker 1. You get what you fucking deserve.
Oh, I would whip him as well. I've barely interacted with him, and I want to see him whipped. So yeah.
Nothing in this series has come close to that satisfaction. But he has a whole character arc. Let's just say he has daddy issues, all right? We'll leave it at that. We're going to keep this spoiler-free, but...
Oh, no.
You know what? Even by the end, fucking Eustace, I came around to him. Another great character at the end of the day. You also have Verity Gavale, previously known as Justine Courtney. That's the name I can say is definitely better out of those three.
Yeah, Justine Courtney sounds way too on the nose.
Yeah, I like Verity Gavale. Mind you, the fans that are bitching about this, it's kind of funny because it's a thing that's actually been around for quite a while. I mean, even if you go back to when Apollo Justice was localized, people were not happy about the choice of Apollo Justice, apparently. You could see people whining about it even as far back as then. I'm sure there was some controversy when the Great Ace Attorney games were localized.
Probably. I'd imagine so. I haven't really looked it up and seen any, but yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, so, it's nothing new. Obviously, people are going to be attached to those names, and honestly, I don't want to shit on the fan translation. That's some seriously dedicated work. For a while, it was the only way that fans in the West could play the Ace Attorney Investigations games, and they really did their best in, creating these names that felt like they would come straight out of the franchise. I just feel like the official localization team, for the most part, actually did an even better job. Because And obviously they were never going to use the fan translation names. That was just never going to happen. But I mean, you get things like there's a reporter character who in the fan translation was called Nicole Swift, but here she's Tabby Lloyd, and that's just a way better pun.
Tabby Lloyd. Tabby is great.
Oh yeah. So
Damn it.
yeah, even the one-off characters in these two games, some of them are kind of generic. I'm looking at you. Case 3, the kidnap turnabout. That case had some forgettable one-off characters, but a lot of the other ones really kind of have that like central like Ace Attorney like gimmick. So and then Investigations 2 is a damn near perfect game as far as stories, characters, everything is concerned. Like there's not a single fucking filler case in that game. Everything ties into the overarching narrative, and it is just brilliant.
and that's amazing coming from a series that is kind of notorious for having, really obvious filler cases in almost every game. So, yeah, that is saying something.
Yeah, and really, Ace Attorney Investigations 1, most of everything ties in. The only case that's closest to a filler case is Case 3, and even that kind of ties into the whole smuggling ring overarching plot that they're doing, which ties into the Aragarusu, and that all gets resolved in the final case of that game.
Yeah.
Mind you, that final case, most of the cases in Ace Attorney Investigations were very condensed, they were fast-paced. They go by pretty quickly, but that final case does drag a little bit, especially towards the end. You're kind of like, okay, all right, let's...
All right, come on now. Hold it! You can't be that impervious to justice. It's like, come on now.
Let's not do the spoilers, yeah?
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, when you're taking on that final culprit, it's like, okay, you really can't be that impervious to justice. And if I hear the word extraterritoriality one more fucking time...
Extraterritoriality, yeah, that's the big name of the game.
Yeah,
there. It's like, yeah.
But it's a damn good case, all things considered. Very complex. Definitely out of this game, it's the most complex. But yeah, I gotta say, like I had absolutely like zero issues with Ace Attorney Investigations 2. That's a damn near perfect Ace Attorney game. Like you even get to play as Gregory Edgeworth during his final case, the one that resulted in the DL6 incident.
I am absolutely looking forward to that. I mean, seriously.
And in the first game, there was a flashback case where you get to actually see how Edgeworth and Gumfuck got together.
Oh, that's classic, and also their relationship with Kay is kind of established there as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything is established there, and the bond that Edgeworth and Kay developed during these two games is honestly amazing. Like.
Oh yeah, it's adorable, honestly.
Yeah, you'll see as you get further into Investigations 2, because it's there's just so many cool things that they do with the characters. Circling back to the gameplay, there are a couple new things in these games besides just the investigation sections and the rebuttal and argument sections, which are just testimonies and cross-examinations functionally. They also have a new mechanic in both of these called logic, and in addition to collecting evidence, sometimes Edgeworth will make a mental note of something, and so you'll have to connect these pieces of information in order to come to a logical conclusion. And they're literally, in the UI, you go into the menu and you see like these little puzzle pieces, and you link them together in order to draw a conclusion out of your observations, and that's just it's very on brand for Edgeworth.
It really is, and I also do love the whole puzzle motif with that particular mechanic, and it kind of fits in well in the second game with the mind chess mechanic. So
the mind chess mechanic is the standout here. The mind chess is awesome.
It really is. Yeah.
So with the mind chess, I mean, that's basically like Edgeworth's version of the Magatama or Apollo's bracelet, right? It's like his way of drawing information out of witnesses and suspects and related persons. that they're initially unwilling to divulge. That whole mechanic is really a whole lot of fun, and it's the only gameplay section of any Ace Attorney game that I know that is actually timed.
Yeah, and therefore it kind of gives it this interesting little ebb and flow to it, like you kind of have to get used to its overall rhythm, like and you actually have to like read the reactions and the body language of the person that you are doing the mind chess against, and it's really interesting, and you have to draw clues out and then use those clues to break the pieces. So, I mean, that was really, really engaging in its own right.
And you actually do have to pay attention to the character animations and poses. That's something, that I've sometimes used during cross-examinations in previous games, although I've never been, completely sure how intended it was or how much you're meant to rely on that. But Mind Chess actually turns it into a central mechanic, because you want to pay attention. There'll usually be one animation that the person you're playing against will use that will tell you whether when it's best to bide your time in order for them to give you a little bit more to work with. And like you said, there's kind of this ebb and flow as you pick the right discourses to go through. There might be a particular question that you're meant to ask, but you might not have the right clue to really dig an answer out of the subject at this point. So, I really, really enjoyed those sections. Every time the mind chess thing would come up, I'd kind of get excited, because it's one of the more fun parts of these two games.
And it does kind of really resemble how a battle of rhetoric kind of works out in the end, Like if anybody has ever, tried to really like debate someone who's really, really, or argue with someone who's really, really kind of dodgy, it's like, I mean, yeah, you do kind of have to read people a little bit, So, I mean, it does kind of feel close to the natural way that, people use rhetoric in discourse,
Yeah, and it's a part of the game where you don't rely on the evidence. It's strictly a battle of wits, and just trying to figure this person's tells out. Okay, Apollo Justice kind of did something similar. I think I mentioned earlier that this was the first time that like the game explicitly had you actually like read animations. Apollo Justice did have the whole tells thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier, and I mean, I'll say that's not really my favorite mechanic out of the series, to be honest.
I liked it, but it definitely gets underutilized past the first game that it was featured in. It kind of just feels like more like an obligation. And the same way with the Magatama later on. This pulling information out of people. I mean, this was the best way that the Ace Attorney franchise has done that whole mechanic, and I really enjoyed it. It was something that felt just as fun as the actual cross examinations.
It really was. And I like what with the arguments and rebuttals and everything, how even what the characters actually say is kind of condensed down a little more than in previous games. It's not as wordy, nor does it really take too much of a reach to like make a connection to a piece of evidence or whatnot. Yeah.
What I really liked too was that the way that you approach everything in this game is very logical, which is very Edgeworth, right? I mean, Wright and other protagonists tend to be a little emotional at times, but Edgeworth is cold and calculating, and the way that he carries out his cases in that way shows, even in just the way that you make your rebuttals when you're arguing with witnesses. And something that I did appreciate was that even kind of the way that you break down those testimonies worked a little bit better. And this is something I noticed actually out of later Ace Attorney games, but I really took notice of it here. Like during the original trilogy, there would be times where sometimes you would press a statement during a testimony and get a little additional information, and you would just kind of have to make a mental note of that, and then later on you could press another statement or present evidence now that had changed meaning. But in these games and other later Ace Attorney games, there's actually in every case, a more significant tell. There's almost always going to be some new statement that's added to the testimony if you have to press something out of them.
Yeah, and the whole thing is that, in some cases you have to draw information out. In other cases, you really have to pinpoint on a very specific part of the testimony and see if it links up with any evidence and everything. So,
hold it! Let's not forget the Ace Attorney Investigations Collection.
Wow, look at you, Mr. Influencer.
I mean, since I'm here, we might as well cover it.
This collection contains the 2 Ace Attorney Investigations games.
They star me, Miles Edgeworth. I pursue the truth, not as a defense attorney, but as a prosecutor, in this new style of Ace Attorney game.
Yeah, and where all of your rivals in the investigation series are just as weird as you. Interpol investigator Shilong Lang hates it when prosecutors get in his hair, which must be all the time for Mr. Werewolf.
Agent Lang is admired by his many subordinates, right? So I suggest you watch what you say.
And what if I don't? In the second game, a judge and Committee for Prosecutorial Excellence member, Verity Gavelle, stands in Edgeworth's way.
She overrules people with her extendable gavel. I wonder if she uses that thing in court, too.
Same, me too.
Get to know me, Miles Edgeworth, better as you investigate behind the crime scene tape in my series.
I also felt that role-playing as Edgeworth, I was more compelled toward perfection. Edgeworth is not the kind of character that I see making these kinds of blunders, so I kind of wanted to just carry out these investigations near flawlessly. Of course, I save scum in all Ace Attorney games, but...
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, it's even during like the mind chess sections, I didn't want to mess those up. I wanted to really role play Miles Edgeworth, and he's put into some situations that he's not necessarily in his playing court. As shown in the other games, Edgeworth doesn't typically actually play a major role in most investigations. He lets Gumshoe and the police force kind of handle that. You'll notice that a recurring theme in each and every one of these cases is that Edgeworth is kind of forced into a situation where he's either there at the crime or he's called upon to actually carry out an investigation.
Definitely.
And interestingly enough, he in every case, in some small way, he ends up playing the defense at some point, even if it's briefly, to kind of cover for a character who's obviously not guilty.
Yeah, and it really kind of makes you really admire Edgeworth as a character, like even more so than what you saw in the original trilogies and whatnot. I mean, here we really get to kind of see what's actually going on in his mind, what his headspace is. Like we actually get to see his perspective, and honestly, I came away, even liking him even more than previously.
Same.
And I liked Edgeworth just fine in the original trilogy and whatnot. And but this right here, I think that it really develops his character even deeper than the previous games.
I agree. I agree. It's really quite something, and I found myself having a much deeper appreciation of a character that I already really loved. But now I've kind of been inside his head. I hear what he thinks, and you just come out of it loving him a whole lot more. And there's some interesting character development that happens in Ace Attorney Investigations 2, where Edgeworth even kind of questions his path. Whether he wants to continue the path of the prosecutor, or maybe follow in his father's footsteps as a defense attorney. Of course, if you've played the later games, he's remains a prosecutor, but.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see where his resolve is shaken a little bit, especially in relation to to how like Manfred von Karma actually, raised him and taught him to be as a prosecutor.
And we get that. We get that out of this game.
Absolutely.
In fact, there's an interesting juxtaposition where you see the Edgeworth in that one flashback case in Ace Attorney Investigations 1 and the Edgeworth that we have now, who's the peak form of Edgeworth. This version of Edgeworth after meeting Phoenix, because this takes place actually just a few weeks after Ace Attorney 3, Trials and Tribulations. this version of Edgeworth actually pursues the truth above all else. And so there's an interesting juxtaposition with the Edgeworth of the past, who was striving for that perfect investigation, for that perfect prosecution case that Von Karma instilled in him. Of course, in that scenario, there's no more perfect investigation than, a correctly done one, and one where the result actually aligns with the truth. So it works for him in that case. But I liked seeing the difference in, even though the outcome was the same, and that we got the truth out, it's the method by which Edgeworth achieves that outcome.
And through that, we get to really see the actual relationship between him and Francesca, especially going all the way back when they were both younger. I mean, here we have Francesca as a younger kid and everything, and we get to see that relationship develop a little bit.
Oh God, and it's so good to get more Franziska and Gumshoe for that matter.
Always.
Characters that are notably absent from the later entries.
He got the piss whipped out of him the entire fucking game. I love it. Poor Gummy.
But you know what?
Damn.
Gumshoe has the most important character arc of all time. He gets a good ending for once.
He absolutely does, and that's great to see, man. It's great to see that he prevails in the end.
He does.
You know?
And it's actually the last chronological appearance of the character in Ace Attorney Investigations too. So even if we never see Gumshoe again, at least we got to see him actually triumph.
Hell yeah, man. And it's a win that he needed. He needs those types of wins whenever he can.
For real. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many interesting directions you can take this now from Edgeworth's perspective, being able to play as a prosecutor. Mind you, all the investigations in this game are just that. This is, the state of things before the trial. This is actually catching the suspect that you're going to put on trial and prosecute.
Exactly, and it kind of makes you think about all those previous cases you played and the Ace Attorney and the Apollo Justice trilogies, well, mainly in the Ace Attorney trilogies with Edgeworth, is, how exactly did he come about all that evidence that he used as trump cards and whatnot? Like, how did he interview these witnesses? What is the method to his madness? And finally getting to see that is really, really intriguing.
Yeah, definitely. I think so as well. Just being able to kind of see this side, and really, this is kind of disconnected from the rest of the franchise. The original trilogy, Phoenix Wright and company don't show up in this game beyond minor cameo appearances that are easy to miss. So this is a completely self-contained story, but there are plenty of references for the fans. And Edgeworth references the fact that Phoenix saved him more than once, and how that changes his outlook and the way that he conducts his investigations and prosecutes people.
Yeah, and also I'm going to say that I really love how this game utilizes its universe. It's something that the Phoenix Wright games they always really excelled at, was how they use the universe and the world around them within that universe. It's like here even more so.
Yes.
Like for instance, what was the example I was going to use? Oh yeah, like for instance, the Steel Samurai, of course, has to make an appearance here, and that's actually utilized in a case to a very interesting effect. Let's say.
Yes.
Let's say, and from a person, and from a particular person who something smells funny whenever they are around.
Yeah, it does start to smell, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you know what they say: if something smells funny,
Exactly. So many characters pop up here, and it's actually the only chance that you have in some cases to kind of check up on some of these characters, one-off characters from previous cases. There is even an actual culprit that appears in this game. Well, actually, if you count Von Karma, him too, actually.
Yeah. If you count Von Karma a little bit.
Yeah.
And also we do see some previous culprits in Ace Attorney investigations in the second case.
Right.
So,
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
There's an actual
okay.
from the
Yeah.
trilogy that shows up besides Von Karma, who is that was actually a welcome surprise.
It really was, yeah.
So and there's other characters in investigations too that you come across that it's lovely to catch up on and see them, because I haven't actually, I've played all the other games in the franchise, and so I've kind of missed them. And so it was actually kind of nice checking in with some of those familiar faces. And again, the new characters are just really, really well written. Like this game really kind of nailed what makes Ace Attorney, arguably more so than some of the other entries.
Yeah.
Like even though this is so different, there's kind of an aesthetic here that calls back to the original 3 games. Some of the later mainline games, kind of feel detached from, and that was nice.
Yeah, especially if you decide to use the pixelated characters. Like I went ahead and kept everything pixelated because I'm just a total slut for pixel art,
Yeah.
Yeah, the pixel art I felt was not really that bad here, and it actually, it gave an interesting aesthetic to the investigations, to the investigation parts.
I like that they have the option for both in this collection. We can talk about some of the collection features as well here, because they give you the option to switch between the new HD sprites or the pixelated, mini sprites. So, and even the backgrounds are affected, and you get to see, kind of the old res backgrounds with that. So, if you want that nostalgic experience, you can get it. In my opinion, I don't think the pixel art in Ace Attorney Investigations, for at least for the mini sprites, is that good. So I was totally on board with the HD remastered versions, and those sprites are more expressive than the original ones are, so you kind of get a little bit more out of the story that way. There's also an option to switch between the arranged music and the original tracks, which is nice.
I'll tell you, in the non-pixelated art, man, Cammy looked so high. Cammy.
Oh yes, that woman was high as fuck.
Yeah, she was high.
Yeah, and also busty. I mean, shit, her tits are popping out and everything. There was kind of a cool little comparison, between her and Miss Tenero and their artworks, because they have the same attendant uniforms, but the way that they wear them. With Tenero, kind of being very prim and proper. Her skirt's the proper length. Everything's buttoned up. Her hair's in a nice tight bun. Whereas Cammy Mill's kind of just letting everything loose. Her hair is down and wild. She's falling asleep all the time. Her tits are popping out. Her skirt's hiked up way high. I actually thought that was kind of interesting, juxtaposing those two characters, and even the geometric designs with Tenero encompassing a lot of rhombuses and squares in her design, and Cammy with the circles.
Yeah, circles.
Balloons.
Circles.
Balloons, though.
But balloons. 1, 2, balloons.
Balloon.
Stupid.
But yeah, the collection also offers, the different soundtracks. And so I like most of the arranged versions of these tracks. I feel like they're perfect recreations that have been modernized. One complaint, though, the Objection 2011 theme is still very, very good, but they replaced that iconic saxophone solo with the guitar solo, which still sounds badass, but you kind of lost a little something there.
Oh, what? They just bought Clavier in to fill in, man. It's like he had to lay down his guitar track,
Yeah. It's still one of my favorite tracks, though. Like, Objection 2011 is very, very good, and Pursuit... Chase Down the Truth, the Pursuit theme from the first game. Ooh, one of the best Pursuit themes in the franchise, and it sounds at its best in the remixed version.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, as per most of these games, like I've heard most of the music before I ever even played any of them. Like that was especially the case with Great Ace Attorney. So I mean, I've already heard like K's theme. I've heard most of the pursuit themes from these two games and everything, and so those have already been like burned into my head pretty much. So I mean, yeah, the music here is quite superlative, and that's just to be expected from the Ace Attorney franchise, really.
Of course. Yeah, the music is always very, very good. And if you prefer the original tracks, you can hear those too. Most of the tracks I think are actually the same. There's just a few of them that they rearranged and remastered, and yeah, it's a very excellent experience. Feels so badass just being able to kind of like take down these culprits, you know. And right in like real time, basically, you know, these investigations are very quick. They all happen within the span of a day or a couple days at the most.
Yeah.
So that's nice. You're constantly going from scene to scene. There's not a whole lot of, you know, the ability to kind of go wherever you want during investigations. It's streamlined, and so you're going to be taken where you need to go. But like I said, it results in these cases being a lot faster paced, and you know, that feels like a condensed experience, even if some of these are actually really fucking long. I mean, looking at the final case of Investigations 1, Turnabout Ablaze, Turnabout Legacy and Investigations 2, as well as the final case, Turnabout for the Ages.
Yeah. But I mean, I do like how it kind of really felt like with the pacing of these cases it was a lot more streamlined, like you said. I mean, it's like it doesn't feel like you would take a few days to play through a case, you know? Like, I mean, I was able to get through some of these cases usually within one sitting.
Yeah.
I mean, say for the aforementioned cases that you brought up, but
right, like the longer ones are, you know, you might have to digest in multiple sittings. But yes, a lot of these you can kind of just get through in a single day and get to appreciate that, and that helps with the nature of this game. You know, there's generally going to be a lot of different things that you're going to hold on to. You might have a piece of information you collect towards the beginning of investigation that you don't actually connect and make a logical conclusion of until much later. And of course, there's always going to be evidence that doesn't, you know, that might seem arbitrary and random until at that perfect moment towards the end where you finally get to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a staple. There's almost always going to be some piece of evidence that seems that that doesn't seem very important, or you have no clue what it has to do with anything, and only for it to pop up later, much later.
Like a samurai dog.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But I guess we can go ahead and get into our final thoughts here on the Ace Attorney Investigations collection. So that is, again, the remastered collection of Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth, known in Japan as Gyakuten Kinji, or Turnabout Prosecutor, and Ace Attorney Investigations 2 Prosecutor's Gambit, or Gyakuten Kinji 2. So, Bo, what are your final thoughts on these games and the collection as a whole?
Oh, man, I really enjoyed the first game, and I'm still playing through the second game. But yeah, like I said before, this is quite possibly the most condensed version of the Phoenix Wright gameplay that you can find. And it's if you want like a kind of a somewhat quicker playthrough when it comes to these types of games, these are the games for you right here. And also, like I said, maybe if you're not a huge fan of some of the original visual novel presentation of the games, like this might appeal to you as well. But I think that ultimately these are some games that are must plays, you know, like especially if you're into the fandom and whatnot. And yeah, I can't wait to finish the second game. And the first game to me is already pretty much a classic. So yeah, it's classic. That's what I have to say about it.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. As for me, again, I really slept on these two games. I don't know why I never ended up finishing Ace Attorney Investigations 1, but the opportunity to finally complete that and to actually get my hands on Investigations 2 was really a treat. I'm honestly actually kind of sad now that there's no more Ace Attorney games for me to play. I've played them all, even the Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney spinoff, which is the only game of the franchise that is not available on modern hardware as of now. But all of the other games are now available, so you can practically play through the whole franchise now, and that's a win for Ace Attorney fans. It's a win for potential newcomers to the franchise. So many lovable, memorable characters, just like the other games. I mean, we didn't even talk about Shilong Lang. He's one of my other favorite characters to come out of these two games. Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Yes.
Hold it. Yeah, he is great. He really is.
Yeah.
And the way that he eventually warms up to Edgeworth is also great.
You can tell actually once you encounter him in the second game, like he already he respects the man. Like there's kind of like a whole character arc with him, but the dynamic between them is interesting throughout. And yeah, I definitely wanted to mention him. I feel like he should have interjected, not so fast, to make sure that I didn't miss
exactly
talking about him during this review because he's significant. But love all the new characters that I'd heard about but had not really gotten a chance to really explore. I loved seeing the old fan favorites come back. And I loved being able to play more Ace Attorney. This was a nice change of pace from the other games. I think that there's definitely a place for this for some gamers. Again, if you weren't really too impressed with the visual novel presentation, if that really isn't your cup of tea, this is something that you might be able to sink your teeth into and see what this series is about. So you could start with these games. I gotta say, the ideal playing order, again, would be starting with the Phoenix Wright trilogy, and then these two, and you'll end on a high note with Investigations 2 because it is phenomenal. Peak storytelling in this franchise. Follow that up with the Apollo Justice trilogy, and then end off with the great Ace Attorney games. And then I guess you can go and try out the Professor Layton game if you have a chance to, if you can play that, because the only way to play it is on 3DS.
Damn.
But I highly recommend that one too. That's also a great fucking game.
Hell yeah. I would like to maybe find some way to track that down and play it. It would be interesting. And I've never really played the Professor Layton game, so it'd be an interesting introduction to that. So
yeah, that one really pulled me in. But yeah, like this again is just quality content. Always love fucking playing Ace Attorney. And like I said, I'm honestly kind of sad now because until they finally fucking announce Ace Attorney 7, that's it.
Yeah, we don't have any more releases. It's like, what are we going to do?
I know, but I feel like Capcom must be building towards a new game announcement because, I mean, they just dropped a shit ton of content on us. We got this year both the Apollo Justice trilogy and the Ace Attorney Investigations collection. So that's... The 2024 is a win for Ace Attorney fans, honestly.
Absolutely. It really is.
I'm sure Capcom must be building towards something because they wouldn't be hyping up the franchise this much. And remastering these two games was really taking a chance because from what I understand, Ace Attorney Investigations didn't do too well in the Western markets. And so that's why Investigations 2 was never released outside of Japan originally, was because the sales for the first game were just poor globally. Both games did do well in Japan, though, I've heard. And I think now, with the benefit of this being released, I think, we're going to actually see a lot more favorable reception to these two games. I mean, I don't know how well this collection sold, but it's on all modern platforms. You can play this on PS4, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, PC. It's $40. And it's actually a really good bang for your buck. I mean, we're talking about easily up to a couple hundred hours of gameplay out of these two games, and I can't recommend it enough.
Absolutely.
So, and again, the presentation of this collection and the way that they remastered this, all the little bonus features that Capcom loves to add. I mean, you've got a whole character gallery where you can check all of the character sprites and even hear their voice lines. There's concept art. There's a whole soundtrack listener with the entire in-game soundtrack and a bunch of other added tracks. I pre-ordered the game, so I actually had additional tracks that I was able to listen to, and arrangements, orchestral, and God, yeah, there's just so much to do. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Bo, what's going on with Collateral Cinema?
Collateral Cinema at this point is well into its 8th season, and if you want to hear our season premiere featuring Terrifier and Stu from Stu World Order, check out check out that episode. And by this point, I believe Texas Chainsaw Massacre should be out by then. And this Halloween, we will have both our director's cut Halloween episode featuring Terrifier 2 out. And also, we will be doing our Halloween special where we will be talking about Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, with Kaylee from Once Over Kaylee. So that should be out probably a little while after this episode is released. So I don't know. We'll see what's up.
Well, by Halloween Day, right?
At least by Halloween Day, yeah.
Hell yeah, man. And on Collateral Gaming, we have officially wrapped up Season 6. So very soon here, we'll have out our Season 7 premiere on Doom 1993. And then Part 2 of the season premiere is actually going to be Doom 2016. So that'll be really fun. In between those, we should also have out our game launch review on Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which came out late last month. And I'm really excited to get into that because, a new fucking Zelda game just dropped. And it's also a breath of fresh air, from the status quo of Zelda games right now. So that was actually really fun and a nice little condensed experience. We should then be getting into our spooky season content. So our numbered review for this month is set to be Silent Hill 2 Remake, which I've been enjoying the hell out of. Part 1 will be a spoiler-free review like this one, and then Part 2 we'll get into full spoilers. And of course, we'll have out our Halloween special by Halloween Day. We are either doing the Callisto Protocol or Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And of course, a Halloween edition of the bonus round, where Bo and I will be talking about Parasite Eve.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing through that game. I have a file going right now, so I'm probably going to return to that. But yeah, that is pretty much Squaresoft's, before they were Square Enix and everything. That was Squaresoft's original take on survival horror. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to play through if you like RPGs and if you like survival horror.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to finally check it out. And later this month, we're also getting the release of Call of Duty Black Ops 6. So early in November, we should be releasing our game launch review on that as well. And Zachary and I will actually be able to play that together at launch because next week I'm coming out to Georgia to come hang out with him and play some Black Ops. So it's going to be a fun time.
Nice. Hell yeah.
But you can find Collateral Gaming and our sister podcast, Collateral Cinema, wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and anywhere else. Also, check out our Patreon, where we have exclusive Let's Play video game commentaries. And at some point, we should start adding to those. You can check out Collateral Let's Play on YouTube as well. Bo manages that. And, this season, I think I'd like to actually add on Collateral Gaming's end.
Yes, we do have our Beat 'em Up Friday content. I haven't really done any new content under that particular series in a while, but we do have that on our YouTube, and also coming up very soon, we will be getting into, and incidentally, our Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney playthrough. We're going to start with the first case of the first game and just pretty much play through the series, probably in the order that you recommended, Ash. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun getting into that, and hopefully Robert will be joining me for a lot of that because he needs to kind of be on our level here a little bit, you know?
Definitely.
So yeah, look for that coming very soon.
Hell yeah. And if you'd like to support the show, you can also buy us a coffee on Buy Me a Coffee, and you can also check out our merch store on TeePublic. And I think we even have some Ace Attorney references in the works for future merch designs, which I'm excited about.
Oh, yes, definitely. And we need to get Robert's T-shirt done.
Yes,
we
do.
He has his own catchphrase, and we're going to totally make it a thing. It's totally going to be a thing.
Totally. But also hit us up on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We do have a shitposting group, Collateral Media Podcasts, on Facebook. So you can join in on the fun and post about movies, video games, and pop culture media with us. Share news and whatnot. It's a fun space to hang out.
Absolutely. It's all kinds of fun. And it's also the most likely place where you will actually be able to directly interact with us. So, yeah, join us there.
And we do post plenty of Ace Attorney-related content.
So. Oh, all the time. Yes. Lots of Ace Attorney-related stuff on the shitposting group. So, yes, definitely.
Yeah, all the Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth memes, and it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, and all the arguments about ladders and step ladders and all that good noise, you know. So
exactly, but with all that being said, I guess there really is only one thing left to say.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Objection! Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.